The Anthem of Creation, a powerful and unknowable force. Gods known as the Shapers used their instruments to harness the power of the Anthem and created the world, but the Anthem refuses to be controlled. Before the Shapers were finished, they abandoned their work and the planet itself, leaving behind their instruments that would come to be known as Shaper relics. Humanity was left behind in a dangerous world, so they invented suits of power called javelins and constructed great walls. Nope, neither of those walls. Heroes rose among humanity, those who would protect the people and silence the cataclysmic storms brought on by Shaper relics that had become overwhelmed by the Anthem of Creation. These heroes were known as freelancers. How's it going, you wonderful people? I'm Jake the Ashen Hollow, and welcome to the Story of Anthem. If you're as excited about Anthem lore as I am, be sure to subscribe. I have literally dozens of lore videos I plan on doing for the super in-depth story. But for now, let's cover the basics of the main story. Before we continue though, I do want to point out that since the player character isn't named, I'll be referring to them as our, or the freelancer, or lancer, or even as you. There are other freelancers in the game, but they have names, and it's just easier to do it this way. I just wanted to clarify that real quick so there won't be any confusion. Anyways, let's jump back in. We start our story in Bastion, which is essentially the human kingdom or country. I'm not 100% sure on that yet. Inside of a caravan of Striders headed towards the largest known Anthem-created cataclysm called the Heart of Rage. Our freelancer is paired with Halleck, the leader of the freelancers, and the Cypher Fae. A Cypher being a person who is very attuned to the Anthem that connects with freelancers while they're on their mission to provide them with intel and support, essentially. You're a rookie on this mission, but Halleck thinks you're capable, so the group of freelancers head into the storm to silence it. But things would go very, very wrong. When the Anthem overloads a Shaper relic, on top of creating a cataclysmic storm, it also creates life forms, most notably the Titans. Through the intensity of the storm, the Titans, and all the other threats of the Heart of Rage, the mission begins to fail very quickly, and the freelancers are dropping left and right, and their ciphers are falling into comas from being too strongly exposed to the Anthem. Faye calls for a retreat, telling them that they can't stop this storm, but Halleck refuses to give up, and soon we see the number so dwindled that it's just your Lancer and Halleck left alive. Halleck takes a hit from a Titan and tries to return to the fight before you drag him out of there back to Faye and the Strider, all while he's protesting against it. The freelancers failed to silence the Heart of Rage, and the people's faith in them began to fall even further. The Lancers and the Ciphers that remained would scatter from the group and take jobs where they could find them. It's then we fast forward to 2 years into the future. Our freelancer is on a pretty routine job with their new partner in Cypher, Owen. The Lancer finishes up silencing an unstable relic before heading back home to Fort Tarsis. Owen and the Lancers celebrate a job well done, and Owen expresses that he doesn't want to just be a Cypher. He wants to become a freelancer as well and pilot his own javelin. But our freelancer informs him that he still has a lot of training to do. It's then that they're approached by a woman named Tassin, a member of Corvus, which is like the world's intelligence agency, basically. She has a contract for the freelancer. It's about an Arcanist named Matthias that has gone missing, and she wants the Lancer to locate and bring him back. And apparently this Matthias is quite important as he knows a fair deal about Shaper relics. So the freelancer heads out to look for Matthias and is able to connect to his radio from one of the abandoned Arcanist camps. Matthias is held up in some nearby Shaper ruins and is being pursued by the Scar, a scavenger race of sorts, but as Matthias notes, they're appearing in much larger numbers than usual and are far more aggressive than they have been in the past. Either way, our freelancer gets Matthias out of there in a jiff and back to Fort Tarsis. Back at the fort, we speak with Matthias, Tassin, and a man named Yarrow. Matthias notes again on the Scar's unusual violence and that something must be stirring them up, to which Tassin replies that she thinks it's the Dominion, a militaristic organization that believe the way to survival is peace through force. Yarrow tells us about the fall of the city of Freemark 10 years ago. He said that the Dominion, led by Dr. Harkin, assaulted the city. The Sentinels, who are the chief upholders of the law throughout the land, and the freelancers, try as they may, could not stop the vast numbers of the Dominion from besieging the city. It turns out that Freemark held a secret Shaper relic beneath its surface called the Cenotaph, and that the Dominion was searching for it. Dr. Harkin built a machine to attach to the Cenotaph that he was confident would allow him to control the Anthem of Creation. The plan backfired though, as the device did not work, and the Cenotaph was overwhelmed by the Anthem, and in the blink of an eye it created a cataclysm magnificent in size that would come to be known as the Heart of Rage. There were very few in Freemark who escaped to tell the tale of its destruction. Tassin believes that the Dominion is back and wants the Freelancers' help in figuring it out. She asks our Lancer to go meet up with one of her operatives who is currently undercover within an organized crime group known as the Regulators. Once the Freelancer arrives there, however, the Dominion has already captured the operative, and she's being interrogated for the location of a Shaper artifact that the Regulators have. We see the Dominion led by one known as the Monitor. He was there with Dr. Harkin the day the Heart of Rage started, and is a talented Javelin pilot as well as a powerful cipher. The Dominion get the relic they wanted, and the Monitor does away with the agent. Our Freelancer has to fight their way through Dominion forces to make it back to Fort Tarsis and report what happened back to Tassin. Tassin analyzes the data from her spy's archived files, and she finds that the Monitor wants to weaponize the Cenotaph, as he has since perfected the means to use the machine Dr. Larkin failed to. She of course wants our help, but the Lancer is hesitant at first, stating that taking all of that on is too big a job. Tassin says that you'll need a team then, and that there are two others who never let the Heart of Rage go, Halleck and Faye. Our Freelancer will have to convince their old crew to help out. Tassin tells the Lancer that Halleck and Faye are at Princess Zim's regulator camp finishing up some business, and to meet them there. While en route, however, Owen comes on over the radio and admits to the Freelancer that he's smuggling himself into the regulator camp, because he doesn't want to miss out on the reunion. When the Freelancer is reunited with the old friends, Halleck is a bit hostile. He still resents the Lancer for pulling him out of the Heart of Rage and then splitting 2 years back. Before they can truly converse, however, the Dominion arrives and attacks the camp. Owen steals a javelin for himself, and they have to fight through the Dominion to make it back to Halleck's Strider, where they can finally talk. It goes mostly disastrous for Owen, however. His javelin keeps locking up and malfunctioning, and once they make it to safety, the Lancer scolds him for being reckless and how he could have gotten himself killed. Back on the Strider, the Freelancer tells Halleck and Faye that they're going back into the Heart of Rage to silence the Cenotaph before the Dominion can use it and could use their help. Halleck is more hesitant than Faye, who admits they haven't stopped researching the Heart of Rage since that day, that they could never let it go. Halleck finally agrees to do just this one job with the Freelancer. They tell the Lancer that they were getting information from Princess Zim about a unique and legendary javelin that could successfully survive the harsh storm at the center of the Cataclysm. The Javelin of Dawn, the very first javelin ever built that belonged to General Helena Tarsis, the leader of the legendary group of heroes known as the Legion of Dawn. General Tarsis lived over 500 years ago and pulled humanity out of slavery from a race known as the Urgoth. She built humanity up strong enough to be able to erect the walls that would protect them, and fought back the Urgoth time and again until she finally gave her life, thwarting the Urgoth's final act of vengeance, to defend the humans' de facto capital city of Antium. Owen asks for the data, but Faye insists that she'll work as Cypher on the mission since she knows the ins and outs, which leaves him feeling more blue than he had after the Freelancer's scolding. Back at Fort Tarsis, Faye tells the Lancer that Zim's info actually gives them 5 locations, and that apparently in order to gain access to the tomb of General Tarsis, they'll have to visit the tombs of 4 of her legionnaires and complete their trials. After completing the 4 trials, the Lancer finally enters the tomb of General Tarsis. It turns out the Javelin of Dawn is not inside the tomb, but rather inside the Fortress of Dawn. But upon the General's coffin, the Lancer finds her signet. It's then that a mental projection of the Monitor appears in the tomb, and tells the Lancer that he wants the Javelin of Dawn. He tells the Freelancer that they could be a team, and that he wants the power of the Anthem to be a god and reshape the world. He says that he'll trade the Freelancer the lives of all the people for the Javelin. The Freelancer more or less tells him to shove it, but the Dominion has already surrounded the tomb, so it's a fight back to the Strider. Faye says that if the Monitor could use the Cenotaph to control the Anthem, he really could do anything that he wanted. He would be a god. Things are starting to get heated, and the group heads for the Fortress of Dawn. Owen again suggests that he should have his own javelin so he can help, but is determined that he'd be more of a liability than help. Once in the fortress, the Lancer hears the voice of Arden Vasa, the inventor of the first javelin and close friend of General Tarsis. He says that only the worthy can enter the fortress and become a legionnaire, so the Lancer has to pass more trials. More specifically, they're taken into some sort of pocket world where they relive the actual trials of General Tarsus. Once the Freelancer completes the trials, the fortress is opened up to them, and the Javelin of Dawn can be seen inside, but once the Lancer goes towards it, comms between them and the Strider cut out, and the Lancer's javelin locks up. From behind comes Owen, holding a device that's keeping the Freelancer's suit in its stasis. He tells them that he's tired of being sidelined and unimportant. He says that if he takes the javelin to the Monitor, then he'll leave Fort Tarsus alone. He tells the Lancer that this is a hopeless fight that they could never win, and then takes off in the Javelin of Dawn, betraying the Freelancer and Halleck and Faye. Back at the Strider, things are looking pretty grim, and so Faye tells the group that she got a pretty good look at the seals on General Tarsus's javelin, and that the Dawn shield they need to withstand the storm won't activate without the General's signet, which they have. She also thinks that they'll be able to build their own. Back at Fort Tarsus, they figure out what they'll need. The list includes a pretty fair amount of corium, which means the Lancer will have to slay some Titans to get it. Halleck also says they'll need some connections within the Arcanists and the Sentinels. And fortunately enough, a Sentinel named Dax is currently looking for the Freelancer, and of course the Lancer already knows an Arcanist, Matthias. So our Freelancer spends some time helping out. They help Dax recover her long-missing aunt from the Emerald Abyss, a place people frequently disappear to when around volatile Shaper relics. They also help Matthias track down the impossible-to-find Elysium manuscript for his research. At the fort, though, we see Halleck struggling to get his javelin running. Freelancers have a mental connection to their javelin that is a part of getting it to function correctly. Faye says that the javelin doesn't need to be repaired any further, but it's Halleck that is the problem. His pride for years has gotten in the way of them making progress. Eventually, though, everything falls into place. They have the support of the Sentinels, Matthias with his knowledge of the Elysium manuscript is able to help with the Dawn shield, and they have all the corium they need. They make the seal, but something isn't right, and it won't activate. It's then that Tassin tells them that the Dominion is on the move and they need to act now. But Faye tells her that they can't, they haven't completed the Dawn Shield, and that they need more time, and assures Tassin that they're the only ones who can silence the Cenotaph. Tassin then reveals that it was them who contacted her because they needed the Freelancer. This is shocking to Halleck as he assumed he would be the one, and that Faye went behind his back. The two get into a fight and Faye mentions that he's blinded by his ego, that his suit hasn't been the problem that he has, and that's why she contacted Tassin because they were running out of time. Halleck storms off after the fight, and the Lancer goes looking for him afterwards. We learn that Halleck left the fort in his javelin and was headed toward the Fortress of Dawn because he says he missed something there, and apparently desperation can get some things to work. The Lancer heads to the fortress to bring Halleck back. It's unfortunately occupied by the Dominion. Inside the fortress, we find Halleck sitting among the corpses of several Dominion soldiers. He admits, though, that this wasn't his doing, but rather it was Owen who saved him. He admits that he feels defeated. Being a Freelancer was all he ever was, and all he ever wanted, and he can't do it that much anymore, and it hurts his pride. Our Freelancer tells him the importance of all of his lessons, and how many Lancers he's taught, and how valuable that is. It's then that Owen arrives, still donning the Javelin of Dawn. Oh, the old joke that writes itself. Halleck is still pissed at him, calling him a two-faced bastard, and Owen tells the Lancer that he needs to talk to them alone. He says that the Monitor betrayed him once he went into the Heart of Rage and failed, because the seal wouldn't activate without the General's signet, and punished him for that failure, to which he reveals a scorched face and blinded eyes. He says that he's since parted ways with them, and tells the Lancer how the Monitor has heard the Anthem's voice and has driven him mad, and that he'll stop at nothing. He apologizes for how things have transpired and admits that he doesn't deserve their forgiveness, but he gives the Lancer the seal from the General's armor so that it can properly protect them from the Heart of Rage before he disappears again. Back at Fort Tarsus, Halleck and Faye put aside their differences and rekindle their friendship, and they make their final preparations before heading back into the Heart of Rage. Once there, Halleck says that he'll have to stay with the Strider to keep it from falling apart, and Faye reveals that Tassin and the Sentinels are still hours away, so it's just up to them. So the Lancer suits up and heads into the raging storm atop the ruins of Freemark. They fight their way through waves and waves of Dominion forces. Upon finally reaching the center of the storm and the Cenotaph, we see that the Monitor has beaten us there. He's already connected his machine to the Cenotaph, but as the Lancer goes to grab him, his javelin falls to the ground, revealing that it's empty. The Monitor then appears in the middle of the storm, larger in size and power. He says that he's transcended and is now one with the Anthem, that he's become a god. Faye confirms that the Monitor, Cenotaph, and Anthem are all linked together. The only thing the Freelancer can do now is to kill a god. The Monitor and Lancer fight a long battle, and the more ground the Lancer makes, the more unstable the Cenotaph gets, and the weaker the Monitor becomes. Eventually, the Lancer defeats the Monitor just as Faye and Halleck come crashing the Strider on top of him, to confirm the kill, I suppose. The good old double tap. With the Monitor dead, the only thing left is to silence the Cenotaph, but since the Monitor rigged the machine up to it, the only way to silence it is to connect with it the same way the Monitor did. Faye admits that she can hear the Anthem speaking to her, feel its power. She's worried she can't resist the temptation, but ultimately Faye is stronger than the Monitor ever was, and she resists it and pulls away after silencing the Cenotaph. The Heart of Rage is finally defeated and the day is saved, and the three friends are now more closer than ever. Halleck even admits to wanting to do more jobs together, to which the Freelancer jokingly mocks his "only one more job" jab. The team heads back to Fort Tarsus to celebrate. Halleck and Faye head to the bar, but Tassin wants to speak to the Freelancer first. She tells them that the Monitor's death has struck a blow to the Dominion, but many of them still fight on, but they won't be a threat for some time. She then says that she has someone she wants them to meet. They enter a secluded room where the Lancer meets Grandmaster Adams. The Grandmaster tells the Lancer that he and his men found something. On the table in front of them is a body covered with a sheet. The Grandmaster says that the thing took down 2 of his men before they could get to it. The sheet is then pulled back to reveal a dead Urgoth. He says that they found it in Bastion with a map of the region on it. He says that it could just be a single scout or the start to something much bigger, and the screen fades to black. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. I hope you've enjoyed. I'm very excited to start breaking into all the lore Anthem has to offer, and we still have so much to cover and a major cliffhanger that we may see resolved in future DLC. Either way, if you're interested in all facets of Anthem's lore, click that subscribe button and the notification bell. If you haven't already, you should follow me on Twitter, where 3 in 10 of my tweets are actually pretty solid. If you've ever considered supporting the channel a step further, check out my Patreon page for details on how. Links for all of this can be found on the screen or in the description below. Thanks again. Peace 'em out!